When TurboTax told Tim O'Shea his taxes were filed correctly, he believed them. Now he owes $17,000 he doesn't have. When GM promised job security to 500 workers in Ingersoll, they believed them too. All of us want to believe our financial future is secure in Canada. But what if these aren't isolated incidents? What if they're warning signs of a fundamental breakdown in Canada's economic safeguards? Today, we're following the money to reveal how these three crises are connected and exactly what you need to know to protect yourself from becoming the next victim. The Tax Trap: How TurboTax Created a $17,000 Nightmare. Let's dig into what actually went wrong with this software nightmare. The TurboTax error wasn't just some minor calculation mistake. It specifically targeted Ontario provincial credits in a way that left countless taxpayers on the hook for money they never expected to owe.
It is just under $2,000 due to the compound interest.
$10,000, $8,000 was a credit that I had received that I shouldn't have.
About $17,220, give or take a dollar or two.
Big money these Ontario TurboTax customers owed in unexpected taxes and interest years after they'd all used TurboTax, a popular form of tax filing software.
Big surprise?
Very big surprise, nasty surprise, I dare say.
For Tim O'Shea of Oakville, who is not related, he'd filled out taxes for his daughter, as he does every year.
What was the trigger? How did this come to light that this money was owed to the government?
The triggering event was an audit which CRA did for 3 years worth of Ontario provincial credits.
Following the TurboTax software, Tim's daughter got $15,000 in credits. Michael Ribeiro of Mississauga did the same until an audit said he wasn't entitled.
The software made a critical error when calculating daycare rate relief credits by considering only one income instead of both household incomes. This seemingly small oversight created massive financial problems for families across Ontario. Michael Rivero from Mississauga learned this lesson the hard way. Like many Canadians, he trusted TurboTax's marketed 100% accuracy guarantee only to discover during a CRA audit that he wasn't entitled to credits he'd already claimed. Cheryl Wong experienced the same shock when she discovered the software had miscalculated her daycare relief based on incomplete income information. These weren't isolated incidents. They represent a pattern affecting potentially thousands of taxpayers. What's particularly infuriating is Intuit's response to the crisis.
The company that owns TurboTax denies it's at fault, saying in an email, "Our product is calculating the tax correctly. The accurate calculation of this credit relies on user inputs." The company lays the blame on tax filers, some of whom they say were using a mode which allowed them to decline having their information reviewed by the software before filing.
They have denied any refund with respect to the penalties that I incurred.
In its marketing, TurboTax guarantees its calculations are 100% accurate. 3 years ago, TurboTax agreed to pay $141 million in restitution after a New York State investigation into a misleading ad campaign. The company didn't admit any wrongdoing.
Despite marketing materials promising complete accuracy, when confronted with their software's failures, they immediately shifted blame to users. In an email, the company coldly stated, "Our product is calculating the tax correctly. The accurate calculation of this credit relies on user inputs." They even suggested some users might have opted out of having their information reviewed before filing, effectively blaming victims for the company's programming errors. The scale of this problem is staggering. Global News uncovered at least 100 TurboTax filers facing CRA audits and repayment demands, but the actual number likely stretches much higher. Each of these taxpayers now faces not just repaying incorrectly claimed credits, but also interest and penalties, creating substantial financial hardship that could have been avoided with properly functioning software. What makes this situation even more galling is the stark contrast between Intuit's massive profits and their refusal to support affected customers. While the company enjoys a multi-billion-dollar market valuation, ordinary Canadians are left struggling with unexpected tax bills, interest charges, and the stress of dealing with CRA collection efforts, all because they trusted software that failed to perform as advertised. The red flags for taxpayers are now painfully clear. Any tax software that calculates provincial credits, especially those based on household income rather than individual income, deserves extra scrutiny. Users should manually verify these calculations or seek professional advice before filing. The software's review function shouldn't be bypassed, and any unusual spikes in provincial credits compared to previous years warrant immediate investigation. Quick pause. Over 80% of people who watch this channel aren't subscribed. If that's you, it only takes a second to click subscribe. It's completely free and it helps us keep digging into the stories that matter, especially the ones the government and big corporations would rather you ignore. We're just getting started. In a moment, we'll show how this tax nightmare connects directly to a devastating plant closure and a nationwide economic unraveling that could hit your community next. So stick around. You need to see what's coming. Economic domino effect. Economic domino effect from GM plant closure to national crisis. From tax software failures to economic collapse, there's a crisis spreading across Canada that's destroying far more than just individual finances. 200 kilometers away from Ontario's tax disaster epicenter, an entire community built around a single industry is watching its economic foundation crumble.
Tonight in southern Ontario, where General Motors has announced the temporary shutdown of an assembly plant starting Monday. There are about 1,500 workers at that plant that primarily assemble electric cargo vans, and the plant also houses a battery facility. Ontario Premier Doug Ford says he's spoken to the company and has been told this isn't about tariffs.
What I understand from the president of General Motors that I spoke to, it's going to be about 500 employees. It has nothing to do with the tariffs, he said. The volume is not there. People are not purchasing like they thought they would. So they have thousands of vehicles sitting there. We're going to make sure we support the workers and make sure that we get government, especially Canada Post, to pick up some of these vehicles because that's what it's geared for.
Here's what the company is saying. General Motors put out a statement that reads in part, "This adjustment is directly related to responding to market demand and rebalancing inventory. Production of BrightDrop and EV battery assembly will remain at CAMI."
The GM plant closure in Ingersoll isn't just about 500 lost jobs. It's the warning sign of a national economic emergency with roots stretching all the way to Washington. Picture this. The sprawling GM Ingersoll facility, once bustling with activity, manufacturing lines churning out vehicles that supported entire families. For decades, this plant was the economic heartbeat of the region, generating not just direct employment but sustaining hundreds of small businesses in the surrounding community, from parts suppliers to the local diners where workers grabbed lunch. When the April 11th announcement came, workers were initially told it was just a temporary shutdown. The plant briefly reopened, giving families false hope before the crushing October news permanent closure. But why did this happen? Unifor, the union representing these workers, didn't mince words about the culprit. They directly pointed to the former US president's policies as the driving force behind these cuts. Although, is it currently being covered up by lack of sales? We're seeing a shift in EV policy in the United States right now, a Unifor representative explained. Obviously, President Trump is not as keen on transforming the auto industry, except to crush it with his tariffs. This wasn't an isolated incident. Just days before the Ingersoll news broke, Stellantis, the corporate giant behind Chrysler, Dodge, Fiat and Jeep, temporarily laid off 3,500 workers at its Windsor plant. The pattern was unmistakable. Canada's auto sector, the country's largest manufacturing industry and second largest exporter, was suffering systematic damage from policies crafted across the border. The situation became so dire that then Prime Minister Mark Carney actually paused his election campaign, something almost unheard of in Canadian politics, to address the fallout.
To ensure that whichever government Canadians choose in this important election, Canada is ready to negotiate with the United States from a position of strength. He says we will fight every day for the workers who build this country. Now, Mr. Carney, acting in his capacity as Prime Minister, came off the campaign trail once again this morning for a Canada-U.S. Cabinet Committee meeting on this country's tariff response. But He took no questions after that meeting, and this is really all he had to say.
In the last week, there have been a lot of developments in terms of U.S. tariff policy, reactions from others, including China, really marked tightening in financial conditions, a slowing, the initial signs of slowing in the global economy, impacts that we're starting to see unfortunately in the Canadian economy, particularly in the Canadian labor market. We reviewed our response to those tariffs, our core strategy of to fight, to protect, and to build. We left instructions for officials to ensure that the next government, whichever government Canadians choose, will be in the best possible position for negotiations with the United States, which, as the President and I have agreed, will begin from the start of May.
He convened an emergency meeting of the Cabinet Committee on Canada-US Relations, urgently discussing not just the auto industry collapse, but the tightening financial conditions and slowing global economy that were beginning to strangle Canadian jobs. During this critical meeting, officials were tasked with preparing contingency plans regardless of which party won the election. The message was clear. Negotiations with the US, scheduled to begin in May, would determine the future of entire Canadian industries and the communities that depend on them. What we're witnessing isn't a collection of isolated incidents. It's a perfect storm revealing Canada's economic fragility, the confluence of tax, software failures, manufacturing job losses, and political scrambling around tariffs exposes just how vulnerable our financial stability has become. But awareness is our first line of defense. By recognizing these interconnected threats, we can take proactive steps, verify tax calculations independently, develop multiple income streams, and stay informed about trade policies that directly impact our livelihoods. This economic death spiral isn't predetermined. By understanding the warning signs and preparing accordingly, Canadians can protect themselves from the worst outcomes of these systemic challenges. If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't just about taxes or just about lost jobs. This is about a system cracking under pressure. So let me ask you, do you think Canada's economy is on the verge of collapse, or can we still course correct before it's too late? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you're seeing this unfold in your own community. And if you found this video eye-opening, please hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update on the issues that actually affect your wallet and your future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.